What's up, guys? Zach Costuros. Hey, I just want to start off by wishing you a happy new year. It's January 1st, 2024 as I record this, and it has been probably about a year and a half or so since I put out my last piece of content. And main reasons for that, if you care, are we moved from Washington State to Montana in the middle of 2022, which you might know if you've watched these videos in the past. And we got here and we immediately started building a new house. And that's been a whole process, as it always is. And so basically we've had no time. I've personally had no time aside from trying to build a new life with my family and build a new house and keep my businesses running and bouncing back and forth between Washington and Montana. I've had no time to create content or engage on social media or do any of those things. And I'm ready to re-engage, right? And it's not a New Year's resolution. It just timing worked out. We pretty much finished up the house and moved in about a month or so ago, and still things that we're trying to get done and buttoned up. But primarily I'm starting to feel like I have a life again, and like I can participate in some of the conversations that I think are really important to take place or to take part in these days. And so I say all that, but I would also say that over the last year and a half of not engaging in these things, of not being a part of the conversations, so to speak, it's given me a great opportunity to reflect and to think about what do I want this even to be? Where do I want it to go? I've had a hard time figuring that out in the past. And yet as like we moved in 2022 and the world was crazy, and it's only gotten crazier in many ways. And so I've just had the opportunity to step back and say, man, when I look around, what I see everything that's been built, maybe not everything, most everything that I see that's been built is crumbling. It's falling. And there's this verse in the Bible in Matthew where Jesus says, hey, if you just hear my words, but you don't do them, you're like someone that built a house on the sand. He says, in the wind and the waves come and a flood, and it destroys the house. But then he says, if you take my words and you actually do them, you walk them out, it's like building your house on a rock. And the same wind and those same waves and the same flood will come. And it will beat, it says it will beat against your house, but your house will stand. And man, I think for me, that is the word for me for 2024 that I want to share with you, is that we are walking through a time, so many of us, where we're looking around and we're going, man, we are getting beat on. The wind is howling and the waves are pounding and the flood is flooding. And we're trying to figure out, is what we built going to stand? Is the life we built, the family we built, the marriage we built, the work, the business, anything in our life, any institution that we look around us, they are failing. Maybe not our personal lives, hopefully not our personal lives, but when we look around, we go, man, the wind and the waves and the floods are pounding and things are sinking, they're crumbling, they're falling. And for me, over this last year and a half, just sort of stepping back and watching this happen and going, hey, if you thought it was bad 2022, 2023, wait for 2024. I think pretty much anybody that's paying attention can see the writing on the wall. And so I think for the foreseeable future, what I want to participate in, what I want to share with you, what I want to explore with you is this idea of building something to stand. Let's build it to stand, built to stand. That's what I'm talking about. And it's this idea that whatever we're building, right? Whether it's our family, whether it's our business, whether it's our career, whether it's our church, whatever it is it being built to stand? And then what does it take? What are the inputs that are required for something to stand? Because so often what we're told in culture, what we're told in the world today is that, hey, if you build it, right? It's like if you build it, it will come. And very often the image that's presented is that if you build it, it might be hard, but it will be enjoyable and it will be easy in some ways. And they make it look more glamorous than it might be. But what my life has taught me, and hopefully what you've seen in your life and in looking at reality the last several years, is that when we build it, it's not easy, first of all. And as we're building it, we realize the reality that it's always being beaten on. And it's never going to get easy. And even if you think you've gotten to a point where it gets easy, you know the next beating is probably just around the corner. And so what does it take to build something that will stand? And so you've probably heard me talk about this in my past videos. If you've watch them or listen to the audio. And for me, right, I think that I look at it this way, and I'm still fleshing some of this out, but here's my thought process behind it that I want to share with you today that we can then explore as we go through this year of 2024, whatever it brings, whatever waves and storms and floods come. Can we build something together that stands? And this is how I think that looks, right? The first thing is we've got to start with the foundation of faith. Like Christ in his analogy talks about this foundation on a rock, right? And I would say that our rock, in terms of what we build, how we build our lives, is our faith, right? Because as I've said in the past, everybody has faith in something. As we've learned in the last few years, lots of people have faith in, quote, the science, right? That's where they put their faith. And for others, it's faith in the government. They think the government will solve all their problems. And for other people, it's entrepreneurialism or it's money. And yet, what hopefully we've seen over the last several years throughout our lives is that when we build our things on a foundation that's not our faith in Christ, the rock, when the waves come, right? You might be able to withstand some waves. You might be able to withstand some wind. But when they all come, those things crumble. And so for me, I look at it and I go, I don't want to build things the way that culture tells us to build things. I want to try to the best of my ability, by the grace of God, to build things that are based on Christ, that are based on the Word, that are based on the principles that are laid out, that have stood the test of time, that have not changed, even though people want to change them. Because if I build on that rock, then everything else will stand when it's beaten on. And so I step back and I say, okay, the foundation of faith, right? The next thing is relationships. Because relationships are what life is all about, right? Whether it's our kids, our wife, our friends, our coworkers, our ability to relate, to be in community, to love people. That's what makes life. That's what makes life enjoyable, right? Like you can make all the money in the world, but if your kids hate you, was it worth it? You can achieve all the success in the world, but if you die alone, are you fulfilled? Did you live out your purpose? And I think, to me, it's like part of what I'm trying to describe here is I have an enemy. I've tried to, as Patrick Bet-David would say, choose my enemies wisely. And the enemy that I'm trying to fight against right now is the enemy that lies to us and says, hey, you can have everything in the world you want if you'll just sacrifice everything that matters most. You can have cars and planes or this or that, or you can travel and you can live this lavish lifestyle. And to me, all of those things, none of those things are inherently bad by themselves. But they're bad if they're built on the wrong foundation. If they become the foundation, then when the wind and the waves come, like we're experiencing today, they will fall. And so back to relationships, right? If 2024 gets really, really hard, if there are things that come in 2024 that we could have never imagined, it's our faith and our community, our relationships that will help us make it through all of those things, even more than our money or our work or our social media followers or whatever it might be. It's that community, those relationships. And so that's the second thing to me. It's building on the foundation of faith, and maybe it's the floor. The floor, if you're in construction, right, that all your walls sit on are your relationships, right? And if those are strong, then you have a pretty good chance at some of the others. And the next one would be your health. Because how many people do we see that sacrifice their health so they can attain all these other things? And we don't always have control over our health. That would be a scenario where, like, you might have some wind and waves and floods coming at the part of your structure that is your health, right? Maybe those are the walls. I haven't figured that part out yet. But we do have control over how we prepare from the standpoint of our health. Are we eating well? Are we exercising? Are we getting sleep? Are we going out in the sun and letting it come into our eyes, right? Are we stewarding the body that God has given us so that we can be the most effective in whatever we're building? Because listen, I know that if we're coming home and we're let's say having 3 or 4 drinks every night, and then we're tired, then we're not engaging with our kids the way we would. We're not engaging with our wife the way we would. We're not reading the Word and stewarding the family that God's given us the way that we would. And so I'm not saying it's a horrible thing or it's a bad thing to have a drink here and there. But what I'm saying is are we taking care of our health in a way that we're able to continue building all the things that actually matter most? And so that's another pillar that I'll want to explore as time goes on. And then the next one is our work. Are we doing things that, and this is a tough one, right? Because here, I think when it comes to work, it's a graduated scale. Like, we all start out, for the most part, doing something that maybe we don't love because we have to put food on the table, to pay the bills, and all those things are great. And if that's the stage that you're at, do it well. Do it as unto the Lord, as the Bible would say. But at the same time, we live in America. We live with this reality that we do have the ability, if we do have a passion, or we can take the gifts and the talents that God has given us, and we can look for ways to apply those to our work, to bless other people, to create opportunity, to create value in other people's lives. And so it's like, are we spending time going out there and trying to figure out, where does God want me to use these gifts and these talents to serve other people? And see, for me, this is where I have a really hard time. Again, one of my enemies is people that constantly talk about, this is why it's so great to be in business, because you can be rich, you can have whatever you want, you can be the man, you can this, you can that. And that's an enemy to me, because yeah, those are great outcomes, but those aren't great purposes. The purpose of why we do our work, the purpose of why we show up to do whatever it is we do, should not be for what we get. That should be the byproduct. And if we do what we do really well to serve other people, to create value in other people's lives, then guess what? One of the byproducts typically will be we get financially rewarded. But then there are some professions, some careers, where it's not a financial reward. And that's okay, because we shouldn't be doing it primarily for the outcome of the financial part, or the notoriety part, or whatever it might be. We should be doing it primarily because God has given us these gifts and these talents to help these people in this way. And if I'm doing that, then I know that I'm doing what I was put here to do, and I can be okay with that. And so, again, one of my enemies is this lie, this bastardization of what our work is even about. Our work is not about being not self-fulfilling, but it's not about ourselves. It's not about what we get out of it. It's about how it blesses other people. And then money, which ties into work, right? Because money is not bad and it's not good. It's just a tool that we use, right? And there's people who have this view about money, that it's terrible, it's the root of all evil. And then there's people that have this view of money, which is it's good and it's the cause of all happiness. And the truth is, it's not either of those things. It's just a tool. And so when I think about, what are we building that will stand? If we're building on the foundation of money, because it's security, because it's access, because it's enjoyment, because it's freedom, whatever you've heard the terms about money, none of those things are true. They all have partial truths. They all have bits of truth. But if what we're building in our life is built on the foundation of how well known we are at work, or how much money we have, or how healthy we are, or how many people like us, the wind and the waves will eventually destroy those structures. But if what we built is built on the foundation of faith, then everything we build from there, everything we build up from there, will be built from that standpoint, that vantage point, that viewpoint. So our relationships will look different. Our health and the way that we approach health, not as an idol, but as something we steward, will look different. And the same with our work. It won't be self-serving. It will be to serve and bless and create value in other people's lives. And the same with our money. It won't be about being greedy or stingy or thinking that money equates to power. It will be about, how can I live a great life, enjoying the blessing financially that God has given me, and yet knowing that the purpose of this money is also to help create value and be generous into other people's lives. And I think as I look at it and I go, hey, I want 2024 for me, and for you, if you want to follow along on this journey, to be about, let's build stuff. Because I think Christian people have spent too much time complaining about what the world is building and not enough time engaging in what we can build. And even for many of us, the things that we have been engaged in building have maybe been being built on a wrong foundation, or a mixed foundation, or a foundation with holes in it or cracks in it, or whatever it might be. And so to me, what what I want to do in this next year, especially as the world will likely get crazier, is to say, what can we come together to build that's going to last, that's going to stand, no matter what beats against it? And again, I'm still fleshing some of these things out. But it's like the parable that I shared earlier. Christ says it's not about hearing these things. If you hear them and you don't do them, it's worthless. It's sifting sand. But if you do them, that's the rock. And so for me, I look and I go, even in my own life, I've spent a lot of time talking about things. I've spent a lot of time learning about things. I spent a lot of time building things that maybe didn't fully, maybe they weren't fully built on the foundation of Christ. And I see the byproduct of that. I see it all around me, all around the world. And so I come out and I say, hey, if this is something that you're interested in exploring together, whether it's you building your family, whether it's you building your business, whether it's you building your career, how can we as a community come together and say, let's stop trying to build things the way that the world builds them? Because those things are crumbling. Let's start to build things. Let's go back. Let's start from the basics and let's start building things the way that the Bible calls us to build things. Knowing that, yes, we will get the wind howling against us, against what we build, and the waves and the floods and the earthquakes and all those things. But at the end of the day, if what we built stands, then we built well. And that's what I'm excited to explore in this next year. And so I hope that something in there spoke to you. I hope something in there was relevant to you. And I definitely hope that you will follow along on this journey. If you have any thoughts about, hey, maybe there's more to this, maybe you could elaborate on something I shared or add something to it. Again, this is something that I'm sort of trying to articulate and come up with a way to communicate in a way that makes it clear and concise. And so the more input I can get and the more that we can refine this idea, I think the more effective it will be. But at the end of the day, let's build something together in 2024, and let's build something, or let's build things that will stand the test of time no matter what comes against it. So again, Happy New Year. I'm really glad and excited to be back doing this, and I'll see you next time.